There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamma Mia podcast.
Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hi lazy girls, it's Claire here, dropping in your feeds to introduce our brand new Mamma Mia podcast, Things You Didn't Learn in School. It's hosted by our very own Em Burnham and comedian Beck Melrose. And each week they interview an expert about a topic they desperately wish they had learnt about sooner. And they're kind of embarrassed to admit they have absolutely no idea about. So in high school, we all learnt stuff like Pythagoras' theorem, the process of photosynthesis. Some of us learnt how to line dance, which is great. And honestly, critical thinking, all of that stuff, very, very important. But there are other things that you enter the adult world and realise you have no idea about. So on this show, they dive into things like getting out of debt, talking to a mechanic, buying a house, and how to land that dream job. The stuff that you wish you learnt when you were younger, that maybe you wish there was some kind of course on, but instead of looking for that course that doesn't exist, we've got this podcast. So to give you a little taste, here's episode 2 of Things You Didn't Learn in School. And for more, follow the link in the episode description.
Hi, my name's Jess. I'm 23 years old and I'm a shopping addict completely. I just literally can't help myself. And now I owe Afterpay $18,000.
Do you know your super balance? What's compound interest? Do you guys ever worry whether your partner's entitled to your hard-earned girl dollars?
According to a recent study, financial literacy is actually going backwards. Fewer than 48% of Australian women are financially literate.
And it's really important when you get a full-time job and leave home that you've got plans to save and set yourself up for financial independence. And my interest rates are already on the floor.
And yeah, it is annoying and sometimes difficult, which is why we're here to make it a little bit more fun and entertaining. From Mamma Mia, hello and welcome to Things You Didn't Learn in School. I'm Em Burnham, writer, podcaster and audience development lead here at Mamma Mia, and I'm ready to admit that I got a 71.1 ATAR.
Wow. I look forward to these every single week, and that's impressive.
Thank you.
I'm Beck Melrose, comedian, writer and high school performance poet.
Oh, some Ruby core?
Oh, absolutely. It was probably about feelings. They all are, aren't they?
But I want to know what your ATAR was.
My ATAR was... I don't want to talk about my ATAR.
It's bigger than mine, isn't it?
I got 90-something.
Okay.
I got 90-something, but it was...
Cut the pod.
Cut the pod. Well, she didn't do anything with it. She peaked in high school, so...
Well, Things You Didn't Learn in School is a show that helps you realize that somehow we all graduate school without the basic life skills we actually need. Things like, should I buy or rent? How do I invest my money? Who should I vote for? And this is exactly where our show comes in.
We've rounded up experts on everything from finance to fallopian tubes in a cute little curriculum just for you.
And today on the show, we're talking about managing your own money. Because even though it can be so boring to think about, it's also incredibly important we do.
So, to help us out, we've got the one and only Victoria Devine to talk to us about where to start. Victoria is a multiple award-winning financial advisor, helping thousands of people change their relationship with finances. On her podcast, She's on the Money.
Well, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today. I thought I'd just open with like a little bit of a scenario for you, just to chuck you into the deep end. I want to pretend, because this is probably exactly what happened to me when I was in this scenario, but I've just finished uni. I've just got my first full-time job. I'm earning about 50K a year. And I've just moved into a massive share house with my friends and it's really grotty. But I want to know, what are kind of the basics at this moment of time should I know about managing my own money?
Okay, so this is like the most relatable thing in the entire world because that was me, except instead of learning how to manage money and being smart, I got into $44,000 worth of personal debt. and it was really attractive. So I think let's start there, because I don't want to be this money expert that you guys look at and go, oh, she's talking all of these basics of things we should know, but like she probably doesn't know how the real world works. Yes, I absolutely do. In fact, I know what it's like to stay up late at night, not being able to sleep because you're not actually sure how you're going to pay the bank and your rent. So I have been there. I'm in a better position now. And these are the things that I wish I knew, right?
Yeah.
So my favorite, I guess, summary of all of this is there are 4 numbers that I would want everybody to be able to understand. Whether you're at uni, whether you earn $50,000 or $500,000, I want you to just know these 4 numbers. And the first one, I know you probably already know, and that's what you earn. I need you to be able to tell me what actually comes into your account each month or each fortnight when you're actually having money flow in. Then I want you to be able to tell me, and this one's harder, what do you spend?
Oh, I hate that
No
one.
idea.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so what do you spend? So what's the difference between what you earn and what you spend? Because I could sit down and be like, let's do a budget. But not all of us are spreadsheet girlies. Not all of us are in a position where we even want to do that. Like we've got our heads in the sand. So let's make it really simple. So I want to know what you earn. I want to know what you spend, and that's a bit harder.
I'm
So
sweating.
on average,
Yeah.
how much goes out of your account? What do we actually need to have coming out of our account to stay alive? Like we're not talking, what you spend on espresso martinis on the weekend. We're actually going, well, what's rent? What are bills? What does that all come to on average? Because I think most women are quite responsive when it comes to money. So when I say that, I mean, you will just pay the bill when it comes in and go far out. Was that different to last month or was it the same? Bills are often not set. So I want you to be like, oh, I actually know what my bills are over winter. They're going to be a bit more expensive because we use more gas. And in summer, they're a bit cheaper. Like what on average does that look like? Then I want you to be able to tell me, what do you own? Like that's a bit more of a sexy topic, but what do you own? What's that number? Like we're not talking your shoe collection, because like if I could tell you that my shoe collection was involved, like we'd be in a much better financial position, but it's not. So what do you own? Like do you have any assets to your name? It's okay if you don't. We just want to understand that that number is a part of personal wealth and personal wealth creation and money management.
What kind of things would count as personal assets?
So it might be a car that you could dispose of really quickly if you needed like a couple of grand cash in an emergency. It might be some shares. It might be, if you're real bougie, it might be a property, but very unlikely at this point in life.
Unlikely, yep.
Yeah, unrelatable content, but it might be a property. It might be just assets that you own. It might be your savings account. So you own an asset that is your emergency fund. So if you've got $1,000, like that's part of your own figure. And that number is the figure that over time actually goes up and down. So, we might get to a point in life where we do have a mortgage, in which case that figure is going to be negative. But that's okay, because on average, what we want to see that line doing over time is just increasing. And sometimes that has to go a step backwards to take 2 steps forward. The next is, what do you owe? So like, do you have any debts? Yes, HEX is included. It's not as scary, but I want you to be really across these numbers. Like, what do you owe? And as much as that could be really confusing, for me, the basics of money management is just really about awareness. And I think that if we're going to take a step into understanding our money, we actually also need to take the judgment off. I don't care what you spend. I care that you know what you spend, and I want to make sure that you know that what you're spending is active and what you're spending doesn't matter. If you tell me vapes and espresso martinis, they're my values, I'll be like, babe, I'm proud of you that you know your values. Are they mine? No. Does that matter? Absolutely not, because my values are not your values. But what I want you to know is what those numbers are. And I think that when we are maybe a little bit younger and a little bit more frivolous with our money, we bury our heads in the sand because we're like, oh, I just don't want to know. But that's putting you in a position of not being in control and not being in power. And you might not be at a stage in life where you're like, V, I actually want to aggressively save. You don't have to do that. There's no expectation. But what I want you to know is your options. And if we know our options, we have power, and that's what we're going for here.
Oh, I love that.
Oh my God,
And
big fall.
I've stopped sweating now that I know that it's okay. I have a savings account entirely dedicated to espresso martinis and vapes.
Yeah, stunning.
So thank you. Lack of judgment.
I love your
that's great.
values.
Speaking of, should we have more than one savings account for these kinds of things, or is one saving account enough?
Oh my gosh, banking structure is my favorite conversation. I'm a banking nerd, so sit down. I think we should have a number of them.
How about that account? Huh? We have several different plans. Checking, savings and checking, CDs, savings and CDs, checking and CDs, savings, checking and CDs, T-bills. Or we could just take all your money and throw it in a big mattress back there.
First, we're going to have our main bank account. And this is not personal advice. This is how I run my personal money. I have a money masterclass that I have actually had 5,000 different students go through and love, which is my favorite thing ever. And it's basically me going, this is how you do money. This is how I do money. And this is how you automate it. Because how many times do we sit down and go, oh, I need to do a budget? And then the budget just gets filed away, probably on our desktop because we didn't save it anywhere special because it doesn't matter. And then we don't do anything about it. So what you need to do when we're talking budget is take it a step further. That's why bank accounts count. So we're going to have our cash hub. That's what I call it. It's like our cash hub. This doesn't have a debit card. You can't be tap happy with this account. And that's where all your income comes in. So every single dollar you earn, it gets dumped into the cash hub. If you're a fancy pants and you've got a mortgage, slay, but also that should be an offset account to your mortgage so that every single dollar that you earn is working as hard as you do for it, even if it's just sitting there waiting to be spent on your phone bill. So all that money comes into the cash hub. Then if we're smart about our money and we've managed our finances, we'll have a separate spending account. I can't be trusted. So like as much as I am referred to as a money expert and as much as I am an ex-financial advisor, and I am definitely someone who knows what it means to manage money, how to manage money. I used to manage clients' multi-million-dollar portfolios. Personally, I cannot be trusted. If there is money in my account, she's tap happy.
Oh, yeah.
So I manage money on a week-to-week basis. So every Thursday, I transfer an amount. It's automated because, again, I can't be trusted. It's automated from the cash hub to go into what I call a food, fuel, and fun account. So that's my second bank account. So this food, fuel, and fun account, that is for all my groceries. It is for my petrol. It is for my Mikey. It is for all of the things that I would usually tap. If you play netball, we're going to put our netball money in there so that on Thursday you can withdraw it and pay your $10 game fee. If it's still $10, I haven't played netball in a really long time. So you're going to put all your money in there and you're going to know off the top of your head, okay, well, I've got $250 this week, or I've got $300, or whatever works for you. So for me, that amount's about $300. It's not including like my splurge stuff, but it's just my day-to-day. And I know in my head, if I've spent, a bit more on groceries this week, maybe I will say no to my friend for going out for brunch because it's not in line with my values or my goals or what I'm working towards. Because in addition to your food, fuel, and fun account, on the other side, we're going to have savings accounts. We're going to have 3 of them because we're crazy.
Wait,
Whoa,
so your cash
okay.
hub, then 3 savings accounts?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason we're going to have 3 is because we've got short-term goals, long-term goals, and an emergency fund. So those 3 things are really important to differentiate. I mean, you don't have to. If one works for you, you do you, boo. As I said, I just want you to be educated. But those 3 work for me because if my money or an emergency fund that I have is sitting in a savings account, I see it as spending money. It needs to be cut and paste into another circumstance. If we're being honest, my emergency fund's sitting with a completely different bank because I don't
so you don't
want to see it. No, honestly, guys, I don't know if you know this about me, but I have ADHD. Again, that's one of the reasons why I cannot be trusted with money because if I see it, I'm like, oh, have you seen those new shoes?
Oh,
Elite.
absolutely. That's so good. It's like having a financial crisper. You know how whatever's in the crisper, I forget about it, goes straight in the bin. This is like a financial
and then we have
crisper.
wobbly carrots, but instead of wobbly carrots, we have money, and that's really good.
Hey, I love this.
What about if, like you said, you have that like certain times when you're doing all these savings and stuff like that and the spending, but then there's like those little moments where you need to buy a gift for a friend for like a birthday present.
That's accounted for, my friend. So if we've done a good budget, that's all sitting in our cash hub for us. So those bigger bills, right? We don't pay our rego or our ongoing fees often every week. We actually pay them maybe once a year. Like I know because I'm an idiot. My rego and my insurance always come out at the same time. And it bums me out every single time. Yeah. But that money has been accounted for in my budget and it's slowly just collecting in the cash hub. So when I have a bigger bill come in, I go, oh my gosh, I was planning for this. The money is going to be sitting in my cash hub, because instead of being reactive and going, okay, cool, my income this month was $3,000, far out. Oh my gosh, my rego and my insurance is going to be about $1,500. I don't go, far out, half my money is gone. I go, wow, because we have been budgeting for this for the entire year, it's just going to be sitting over to the side. And these big bills become small problems as opposed to these big responsive problems that they have been historically. Because for me, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. If I pay my rego, I'm like, thank God I don't have to think about that for another 12 months. Where in reality, we should just be, tapping away at it, putting some money aside. But that's where our cash hub collects it all. And we only take out what we actually need to spend on that food, fuel, and fun. And those bigger things are in our cash hub. So if we are smart about it, we will budget for gifts, and that amount will actually get transferred to your food, fuel, and fun account, because that account, you don't have to drain it each and every single week. It can build up. And in fact, if I let mine build up, sometimes I do. I go, oh my gosh, I've been so good with my food, my fuel, and my fun account, because I know over to the left, I've got my savings account, I've got my long-term savings account, I've got my investment account, I've got my cash hub. Everything's been allocated for. Are you saying that I can just splurge on that money? Like I can just do what I want with it? Yes, because it doesn't impact your bigger financial goals. So that's where each and every single month you would build gifts into that, and it might build up. So some weeks, as we all know, like you might work from home the entire week, not have one coffee out. Like there was heaps of food in the fridge. You might have visited a parent's house and they've sent you home with a heap. Like you've got a really good looking budget this week. Instead of just splurging it, maybe it just builds up a little bit. Then the week after, you might go, oh my gosh, I actually have 2 friends' birthdays. I'm going out for drinks twice this week. I want to go out for brunch, and it's a bit more expensive. That account is going to ebb and flow. It's not always going to cost you the $300 or $250 a week to exist.
Oh my God.
That's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah. And with the savings account, is that also automated from your cash hub?
Yes. So with our cash hub, what we're going to do is we are going to automate it, and we're going to know our budget. So what happens is once we've done our budget, I feel like so many people put it to the side. We're actually going to go, oh, well, if I said that I can save $50 a week, I'm just going to automatically transfer that $50, set it up, set and forget. Every Thursday, it transfers up and over to that savings account. If we're smart about it, it's high interest savings account. So hopefully that money is making money, because I'm all about money making money. But at the same time, I need you to be aware that at the very start of this journey, sometimes you'll be like, oh my gosh, I definitely forgot about the fact that I have my sister's birthday and I really didn't budget for it. So sometimes you will go back in and flip things around. But if you do that, you need to change the actual structure and go, all right, well, that didn't work. There's usually like a bit of a 3-month teething period where you're going, how does this work properly? Once it's set in place though, I cannot tell you how good you will feel. I'll send you to my budget and cash flow masterclass so that you can do it, and it automates it for you. So it'll be really
amazing.
So
Thank you.
nice.
When you ask that question of like, V, do we just need one savings account? I think that's a really good question. But the reality of it is if we only have one and we haven't planned the rest of our banking system around having a savings account, you're going to dip in and out of it all the time. And then you're going to start having this narrative in your head that you're not good at money, because you go, oh, but I always dip into my savings account. My friend that has a savings account, she's really good at it and she doesn't dip in and out of it. Like, oh, I'm just so irresponsible. And then we have this narrative in our head that we're not good at money, when in reality, the system that you picked just doesn't work for you. Everyone can be good at money.
Don't change the girly, change the system. That's what I always
Exactly.
say. What are the biggest mistakes you see with people managing their money?
I think the biggest mistake that we make when it comes to money is telling ourselves that we're not good at it. Oh, I'm not good at it. Why aren't you good at it? Everyone can be good at money. I promise there are dumber people doing smarter things with their money than you are. And if they can do it, you sure as hell can.
Okay, that's what we're putting on the T-shirt for this episode. I like that.
Yeah, like you can. So I think there's this narrative that once you're, quote, bad at money, you'll never be good at it. I think there's this idea that to be good at money, you need to have a lot of money. And that's not the case at all. Some of the wealthiest people in the entire world are wealthy because of their money habits, not because of their income. But I think the biggest mistake is really crucifying ourselves for not being good at it, because the second you go, I'm not good at that. I'm not going to talk about that. That's not part of my narrative. And maybe you make it funny, like a funny part of your personality. You're like, ha ha, ha, I'm the friend that's terrible at money. Like, you're just putting yourself further and further behind, because as much as these things can seem really overwhelming, they're only overwhelming because they were never taught to you in school, right? And I guess that's why we're here to talk about it, because I can't speak Italian. But like, if I wanted to learn, where would I start? Would I start by picking up an Italian book and trying to read it? No, that would confuse the hell out of me. I would start with the basics. I'd probably download an app and start with, hello, my name is Victoria. And then I'd be so impressed with myself. Why can't money be thought of in the same way? If you've never taught it, if you've never learnt it, if you've never been around it, why on earth would you jump to, I'm so bad at money because someone mentioned a managed fund versus an ETF the other day and I didn't get it. I'm just never going to get it.
I got myself into debt early on. I didn't know how to make it up because I couldn't get more income. I couldn't figure out how to get more income. I entered my family into Family Feud to try and get out.
I love this.
And it worked. I
Did you
paid
get
my
it?
sister back. Yeah, and we won the car and I got out of debt. And from there,
That's the best story I've heard in my life.
Amazing. I mean, I didn't know this.
it's not financial advice, but it worked. It's also tax-free as long as it's technically not a job.
Would you see a spike of Family Feud? Like, when it comes to love and money, which is something that I feel like me and my friends are talking about quite a lot, more so around like de facto relationships, I feel like there's a lot of blurred lines when it comes to being with a partner for a lengthy amount of time and not knowing what your rights are.
Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so if you're in this circumstance, you absolutely should get some legal advice. However, here in Australia, if you've been in a de facto relationship for 2 years, you're treated like a married couple. But I think it's an important question to like step back on as well and go, well, how should you be managing money inside a relationship? And the answer to that is there's no right or wrong. I know couples that were my ex-financial advice clients who were in their 60s and 70s and still didn't have any shared accounts. Like, she had her funds, he had his, they had shared fees and stuff that they paid over the life of their marriage. They put their kids through private school and they still didn't have any shared accounts. And that's so fine because that's what they're comfortable with. I had other clients who were all or nothing, like absolutely every single dollar both of them earned went into the same account. And that does get a little bit complex when it comes to the dissolvation, I guess, of a relationship, right? Because you go, oh my gosh, like, I don't have my own bank accounts. I don't have this. I don't have that. So when it comes to who gets what and when, there's a lot that plays into it. But I guess my advice is for all women, what I want you to have, irrespective of who you're in a relationship with, is what I call a F-off fund. And that's basically your emergency fund. That means that you can get out of any situation you want at any time. I don't care if it's you being at a club at 3 a.m. and you decide you don't want to be there anymore. And even though you're meant to drive home with a few friends, you can afford an Uber. You can leave. But the same is true for your relationship. I don't care how in love with somebody you are. I want you to always have an exit plan, because in any good business and in any good relationship, there's a solid exit plan, because we know that women stay in relationships 9 times out of 10 more because their financial security is at risk. And that's terrifying. Nobody should be in that circumstance. But also always be aware of the finances in your relationship. So what bills do you actually pay? I don't care if your partner takes control of paying them. Do you know how you would if absolutely everything fell apart? Do you know how to pay that bill? Great, that's all I need from you at this point in time, because too many times I have sat across from somebody at a table who I say, okay, well, let's start with the simple things. Where do you bank? And they go, I don't know. I just have a credit card that my husband gave me. And it breaks my heart. I have cried so many times with the clients to be like, oh, far out, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? And we do. We always fix it, because there's always a solution. There's never it's too hard or it's too, anything. We will work it out.
And it's so nice to be able to open up those conversations with your friends, because what women can do on their own is fucking amazing. And what we can do with a group that it's all supporting each other is even more impressive, I think. Thank you so much for joining us, Victoria. We would love to see you again soon, and we'll let you know how we go with our money management.
We'll come back with like things we've taken away from this so we can impress you.
Thanks for having me, friends.
And now it's time for Extra Credit, where we make sure you leave class with all the most important information for the exam that is your entire life.
Well, I've learnt a lot again.
I learned so much. We definitely have to have her back.
I would love to. I really liked what Victoria was saying about your money story. That makes so much sense. Understanding and having an awareness of where all your financial habits and behaviors came from.
Yeah.
And thinking about the little kid and all the lessons that you take on as a little kid, just listening to people talk about money.
I think also with our money story, what I found interesting was thinking back, because my parents were immigrants here and had to save, and they gave me and my sister a beautiful life. And we never lived through hardship, which I'm so grateful for. But there are certain things that I do recognize after speaking to Victoria that I probably do because of my money story.
Right.
I think it's things like I love eating out at expensive restaurants. Like I love it so much. And I think that's just because I never did. Like it was always seen as like such a massive luxury. And then when we were able to, as me and my sister as adults, sharing that experience with my parents has just been so nice.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel like I have a similar experience, but with travel. Like as adults, we can all afford it now together to go away. And it's really nice to be able to enjoy that as a family. And I loved that Victoria wasn't shying away from that. That's part of enjoying your life, and it should be part of your budget planning.
And it's exactly what she said. You have to acknowledge it to understand how you're spending right now.
And it doesn't mean you need to change, but the awareness of it can be really helpful. I think there's definitely unhealthy financial habits I have. I watched my parents being really generous as well. They're so generous. And I find now if I'm 1 or 2 cocktails in, I'm one of those people that's like, everyone, I'm buying everyone drinks. That's very, very damaging the following day.
It's such a culture thing as well, right? Like it's always like you grab the bill, like you take the bill. And then when no one fights for it, you're like, why is no one fighting for the bill?
Yeah,
like,
I know. You got to fight. You got to at least pretend to fight.
What's going on?
And just as a reminder, if you want to go and check out your own money story, Victoria has a bunch of resources on her website. She's on the money. That's it for things you didn't learn in school this week.
Make sure you listen and leave us a review and rating on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Next week, we're talking Renting 101, the things to get you over the line at the next inspection and the things to avoid saying on your application.
This podcast was produced by Cassie Merritt. Our executive producer is Tia Usage, with audio production by Scott Stronach. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. This podcast is powered by our subscribers. If you believe in independent women's media and want to support us, a subscription to Mamamia costs less than the price of a coffee each month. There's a link in our show notes, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers.